Hi, I'm Danielle, and this is Chatter Out Loud, a podcast where I share thoughts and TV commentary on shows I like to watch. Now, before I start, I want to ask that you go ahead and like, follow, share, and subscribe. And on YouTube, where I upload my companion episode of my podcast, be sure to hit the notification bell. This way you can get a notification every time I post a new episode, and then you won't miss out. It doesn't cost you anything to follow and subscribe, so go ahead, hit the bell, and thank you in advance. So welcome, everyone. I decided that I was going to cover Survivor this season. I'm not as big of a fan of Survivor as I am Big Brother, but I have watched a few seasons of Survivor and I like it. So I figured I'd give it a try this season. All right, so in today's episode, I'm chatting about Survivor Season 42, Episode 1, and it's the 2-hour premiere night. The game is set on Fiji Islands. Again, it's season 42, and we will watch this season as they'll have to continue to win, to continue to adapt, and slay the game, or the game will slay you. That's what Jeff said in the beginning. All right, so let's get into it. Day one, they arrive on the island in 3 separate boats, and we're introduced to Marianne first, right? She has a really, really big smile, and she's very, very excited. Her excitement made everyone smile and everyone laugh. Jeff, he goes around, like he does every season. He talks to the different players, asking a couple of them to share their opinion on what it takes to win the game. Everyone comes in with their own strategy. So it's always interesting to hear that. There are 18 contestants, and they are split into 3 tribes. The 3 tribes are Taku, Vati, and Ika, right? In Taku, Jonathan, Marianne, Omar, Lindsay, Jackson, and Maria are in that tribe. Vati is Chanel, Daniel, Jenny, Hai, Lydia, and Mike. And Ika is Roxroy, Tori, Romeo, Swati, Zach, and Drea. So they split them out. To kick off the challenge to win the basic supplies for their camp, right? They have to race to get the paddles for their boat, run in separate legs of the race, 2 at a time, and then they get into the boat, row as a team around the buoy, and then race back to build a pole. They have to capture the bag with the materials to make a pole, and then the pole has to be long enough to grab the ring, and the first tribe that does that wins the basic supplies. And the basic supplies are a pot, a machete, and a flint. And to make note, this season Jeff mentions that there's no rice, and that's a shock to everyone, and it's a shock to me because I guess I haven't watched it long enough. Having no rice, that's a big deal because now they have to really figure out how they're going to eat, right? All right, the second leg of the race, they notice the twist. So the first 2 players go in the challenge. They go get the 2 paddles. They come back, and then as soon as they come back, the next leg of the race goes. The second leg of the race, they notice the twist, right? So there's this big stump with a note on there. Lindsay makes it there first. And then I think Drea and then Hai. They all are there. And basically, let's see. The twist, we don't know what the twist is, but there's a twist, and all of them have to be at the stump. So anyway, they all agree that they were going to participate in this twist because they get some type of advantage, and they agree to work together. And they keep it to themselves. So they each are on their own tribe. They each are in their own tribe, and this is Drea, Hai, and Lindsay. The twist that they see at the stump, they all agree to participate in, and that gives them an advantage. And then we'll learn what that advantage is later on. All right. So while they're trying to make up their mind, they're talking through it, the rest of the people are like, hey, what's taking them so long? What's going on? So as part of this twist, they could rub mud on themselves and all this other stuff just to make it seem like they had to do a little bit more in that leg of the race to get the 2 paddles. So they rubbed the mud all over their bodies, and then it was like fake blood, and Hyde decided to rub that on him. And it was so funny because when they all ran back, I think it was Lydia. It was one of the girls in High's tribe that said, "Oh my God, you're bleeding." It was just so funny. All right, so they have to collect the sticks from the water. They row out. They jump in the boat with their paddles. They row out around the buoy. They have to collect the sticks from the water and build a stick long enough to get the ring. Roxroy brings in the win for the Ika tribe, right? So they were the first ones to get the ring. So they got the supplies, the pot, the machete, and the flint. And then towards when they were going out on that, in that segment, the young girl came back and said, "I'm so worried," because she said, "You're bleeding a lot." It was all fake. And I said, after him being in the water and half of it washed off, it was just hysterical to me because he wasn't hurt, but he had to pretend. Anyway, that was funny to me. All right. In the process of them getting the paddles, Daniel, he was the first leg of the race. When he came back, he actually fell and dislocated his shoulder on that fall. Well, he fell, dislocated his shoulder, and so he was hurt the rest of the game. They had to bring in the medical team to look at his shoulder, and then they popped it back in. Ouch. But it seemed to relieve the pain. So it wasn't enough to pull him out of the game, but he has to be careful the rest of the game. All right, the Ika tribe goes back to their camp and introduce themselves to one another. We get backgrounds, and if you want to learn more about the entire cast, you can check out my last Survivor episode, Survivor 42, the cast episode. I go into the cast, who they are, their names, their ages, and a little bit about them. So you have to check that out. Anyway, based on the first impressions within the tribe, right? First impressions of each other, the 3 younger people aligned and the 3 older people aligned. So that was interesting to see. They also start building and they started their fire. And that was as a result, and that was so easy because they won the basic supplies. That flint helped them start that fire. All right. Now, both the Vati and Taku tribe, they had a second chance to get basic supplies for their camp. Both tribes had to make a decision to choose either the Savvy or the Sweat challenge. The Savvy challenge was basically a puzzle of counting triangles. All of the people can play in that challenge, but they only get 2 guesses. And the Sweat challenge, only one person can play at a time, and it's 4 hours. So it's a timer on that one. So we watch each of the tribes. They both decided to select the Savvy puzzle, right? And we watched them both figure out how many triangles were in that puzzle. And it was pretty funny to watch, because after like 5 seconds, one tribe was like, "I got it." And the smart girl, or the analytical girl, Jenny, she's like, "You don't have it. Let me show you." She was trying to explain to them, "See, that's a triangle within the triangle." So they were sitting there counting. I don't know how much time passed by, but one tribe, their answer was 51. Oh, excuse me. The answer to the puzzle was 51. So there were 51 triangles. Both tribes won. One tribe guessed, their guesses were 50 and 51. And the other tribe, their guesses were 51 and 52. So they both got the basic supplies because they both won. So all the tribes now are on an even, what is the term? Even playing field. They all have basic supplies, and they're all starting to build their camps, right? All right. And the pot is for the water, the machetes to chop down trees or bamboo and stuff like that, right? I think that's what they're chopping down. It's for their shelter. And then the flint is to build the fire. All right. Moving into the Vati tribe. Now they start to introduce themselves to each other. We see that Mike, they share Mike's story. He's the retired firefighter. He's 50 something. He doesn't look it at all. And they share his story of being a firefighter. And he was the first Puerto Rican, I guess, to be a battalion chief or something like that. But it was a nice story. Meanwhile, in the Ika tribe, It's already getting tense, and it's tense, and there's tension because of Rox. That's what everyone calls him for short. Um, he just stepped up as a leader, and it's just so funny to watch because they're already split. You know, you have the younger people and then the older members, right? So they're already split. Drea had to tell Rox to take it down a notch. I mean, he was trying to tell people, he's like, I have a work ethic. I have a work ethic, and it just drives me nuts. My children don't do this. First of all, your children are 7 and 3, and you're working with adults. They're younger adults. So let's stop with the comparing with your children. That's the first thing, Rox. But he seemed pretty annoying. So I can see Rox is going to be talked about a little bit in these upcoming episodes because he seems to be pretty annoying, in my opinion. All right. And if you remember, Lindsay, and Drea, they all agreed to work together to get that advantage during that first challenge to get the basic supplies, right? There was a twist, and they all agreed that they would work together. They are all on different tribes, and to get the advantage in the game, they agreed to work with each other. And overall, the twist is that they have to reconnect to use it, but have to decide to get the other two, like one of the three have to decide to get the other two out, and if they're successful, then that advantage is that it becomes an idol, and in the game of Survivor, an idol equals safety. So it was a twist, and I thought it would be a twist for all three of them to enjoy, but no, one of them has to get rid of the other two in order for it to become an idol to win safety. So I really like that twist. I can't wait to see how that plays out. All right. Then we see Jackson shares his story of being a transgender man. All right. We move into day 2. We're going to talk about Jackson a little later. So we move into day 2. The Vadi tribe continues to try to build their shelter, and we see how they're beginning to align within the tribe. We have Chanel and Daniel. They're in alignment. Then we have Jenny and Mike. They are in alignment. And then we have Hai and Lydia. They are in alignment. So it's pretty fun to see how everyone vibes in these first couple of days. And I think I forgot to mention that Survivor is 26 days. Yeah. So it's 26 days. All right. Daniel shares his story of having leukemia as a kid and overcoming it. So that was a touching story. They quickly move on to the Ica tribe. And remember, this first night, premiere night, we're being introduced to all the contestants. We're looking at each of their tribes and how they're doing on this first day. So it's just a lot going on in this first episode. All right, the Ica tribe, Romeo and Zach bond over how skinny they both are. I thought that was hilarious. Zach said something like, yeah, I weigh 120 pounds. That's the heaviest I've ever been. And Romeo was like, well, I was lighter. It's like, it was so funny because they're both so skinny. But they are beginning to connect, and they are aligning in the game. So on day 2, right? Lindsay goes to look for food and an idol, right? I mean, it is Survivor. You want to find the hidden idol. But when she goes to go look for food, Drea, Romeo, and Zach notice that she's going away. And quickly they shoot to Tori, and she says, I know they're going to be thinking I'm looking for an idol, which low-key she was, while she was looking for food, but she was looking for it because every good player, that's what they do in Survivor. And actually, that's what Zach said. There's only one thing to do in a Survivor, and then Drea finished the sentence, and that says, look for an idol. So anyway, when Lindsay came back, oh no, I keep saying Lindsay, this is Tori. When Tori went out to look for food and then came back, not Lindsay. Lindsay's on the other tribe, but Tori went out, looked for food and an idol. And when she came back, Zach had to let her know that, hey, Drea brought your name up. And I'm like, look at Zach being messy already. And he was the one that said there's only one thing to do in Survivor. And then Drea finished the sentence saying that, about the idol. They all were trying to figure out, they all figured out that, yeah, that's what she was doing. Anyway, so we see that Zach is kind of a rat and he can be messy. So we see that already, right? The Taku tribe, a boat comes in out of nowhere and they get a note that one person has to get on the boat. Now, I say the Taku tribe, but actually that happened for all three tribes. So, but we only saw the Taku tribe. They played it out with that tribe first. So all of them, a boat comes up to shore out of nowhere. They get a note, and that note says that one person has to get on that boat and go, right? So for the Taku tribe, Marianne goes. For the Vadi tribe, Jenny went. And then for the Ika tribe, Drea went. And it's a summit. And I think that's something that occurs frequently in Survivor. So I'm not sure about that. But I know as soon as they went there, they're like, oh, it's a summit. So I think that's a thing in Survivor. Anyway, they're getting to know each other. They're talking, and the instructions were to follow the path. And the path was up this big, big hill. And Marianne is walking barefoot. And I'm like, what is happening? Okay, but she was walking barefoot up the whole path. At the top of the hill, they have to separate. The instructions told them to separate, and then they have to make a decision, a private decision, before returning to camp. All right, so the decision they had to make was either to protect their vote or risk their vote. Two selected to risk their vote, and one selected to protect their vote. So Drea and Marianne chose to select or risk their vote, and Jenny chose to select or protect her vote. I'm going to say that again because I kind of messed that up. The players, Drea, Marianne, and Jenny had to make a decision either to protect their vote or risk their vote. Both Drea and Marianne selected to risk their vote, and Jenny selected to protect the vote. And since it's a split decision, the two that risk their vote now get an extra vote at Tribal Council. And the one that's selected to protect their vote, nothing changes. And that's because it was a split decision. And I think if they all chose to risk their vote, like if all three of them chose that, they would all lose their vote or something to that effect. But anyway, it was a split decision. So the two that risked their vote gets an extra vote, and the one that protected their vote, nothing changes. They still get a vote. All right. Okay. Jeff's arrived. Okay, the next scene is Jeff arrives on the island and heads to the Taku camp, and he had to have a talk with Jackson. Apparently, Jackson disclosed some type of medical information the day before they were starting to shoot. It was something about him being on lithium and getting off of it. The medication, it does have a reaction with stress and not eating and anxiety and physical challenges. So they decided that based on keeping Jackson safe, he couldn't continue in the game ultimately. So he had to leave the game. So surprisingly, Jackson is out of the game, right? He had to go tell his tribe. And I'm telling you, when he told the tribe, Marianne's face started to crack, and then she just burst out with this emotional, like, oh, I'm like, what is happening? She was so emotional and upset. I'm thinking, aren't we on day 2? Like, you have that much of a bond with Jackson where you're crying and that upset? That surprised me. I was so surprised by her reaction, but maybe she's a sensitive person. I don't know. I thought it was over the top, but again, she could be a sensitive person. It just surprised me. I was just looking like, oh my goodness, what happened? Okay, moving on to day 3, getting to the immunity challenge. The challenge was water in the platform, water in the platform or platform in the water. I think I wrote that backwards. The platform is in the water. I think that's what I meant to write. I don't know what I was writing. The platform is in the water. They had to paddle the boat, collect 3 chests, drag the chests across the track underneath the net and the boat. I didn't hear that part in the instructions, but they had to drag both the boat and the chests. There was 3 chests under the net, up the ramp, across the track, underneath the net to finish. And then after that, once they get the boat and the chest up to the platform, they can now unload the chest and then solve this massive dragon puzzle. The first two tribes that finish wins immunity, and then the last tribe, obviously they lost. They'll lose and they'll go to tribal council, and then someone will be voted out. Oh, and they have to give up their flint. So that's the punishment. So whoever loses this immunity challenge not only goes to tribal council, but then they lose their flint. And that means they're going to have to figure out a way to make fire. And that's always painful to watch. All right. And then Jeff also mentioned, I think this happened, I don't know if it started last year, or last season, but it was also in last season where they had this shot in the dark, and this rock where they can select the rock, and if they get safety, any votes against them will not count, but if it's not safe, then the votes will count. So it's a shot in the dark. All right. In this challenge, there's a few things I noticed. First of all, it was physical, very physical, and it tired them out. I mean, it looked so challenging to do. The chests were so heavy, and the way they had to get them off of the platform, one at a time, by the way, they had to row out to the platform, pull the boat up to the platform, get the chest, and then do that 2 more times. In total of 3 chests, then bring the boat onto the sand, then pull the boat from the sand onto the ramp along with the 3 chests, and then pull all of that across the track underneath the netting, and then they can open the chests one at a time to solve the puzzle. So it was a very physical challenge. I don't know if you can say very. It either is physical or it's not, but it's a physical challenge. It wore them out. It looked hard to do. And it was just crazy. I liked it. Taku was in first, Vadi was in second, and Ika lost, right? The Ika tribe, they'll be going to tribal council, and they have to give back their flint. I talked about that earlier. And Tori, boy, during the challenge, and everybody gets excited, the adrenaline rush and everything. But Tori, when she was helping to pull that chest onto the platform, Zach was breathing heavy, and she's like, move. She shoved him. He's like, move. And I'm like, poor Zach. So right there, I could see that was like the start of that tension, I mean, she literally told him to move and shoved him out of the way. I think Jeff even mentioned that too. All right. And then when they doing his interview, he feels like he's responsible for the loss. But that team, they really struggled with getting that boat up the ramp. They even stopped in the middle of it. And then they changed their strategy. First, there were all of them in the back pulling. Then they had rocks pull. Oh, no, there were all of them in the back pushing. Then they had rocks in the front pulling. Then they stopped, right? Tried to catch their breath. So they didn't have it together, and they wound up losing. All right. Back at the Ika tribe, Tori made an announcement to the tribe that she did not have an idol. Now, she's a therapist, so I don't know if this is part of her strategy in terms of, let me just get it out the way so they won't ask me later, right? So she just made this announcement. I don't have an idol. I know there was talk, and she actually called out Drea, and someone told me that you, talking to Drea, you were the one who said it. So she wanted to pull Drea aside to talk about it, because someone had told Tori, Drea's the one who said it. And Tori, they began to talk, Tori and Drea. The conversation quickly shifts from that to Rox and how he performed in the competition. Drea was very upset or very disappointed in how he performed, and how he just stopped. So during that conversation, both Tori and Drea decided that Rox is the target, and that's who they should vote out. Then Rox and Swati are chatting, and they want Zach out. And then Romeo and Drea are chatting. They have a difference of opinion because Rox and Zach, they have a difference of opinion between Rox and Zach, right? Because Romeo and Drea are saying, hey, it's between Rox and Zach. And Drea wanted Rox. opposed to Zach. And Romeo was like, no, he's strong. We need a strong person and stuff like that, right? Because remember, Romeo and Zach are the skinny guys alliance. They don't have strength. So they need a big guy like Rox to help, right? And that's how Romeo's thinking logically. Drea's, I think it's more of an emotional reaction because she was pissed off at how Rox performed. But I think Romeo wound up talking her into it. And then we see Romeo shares that he wants Tori out. Especially because Zach and him are the skinny guys alliance. So clearly they're all over the place. And that always makes for an interesting tribal council. All right, at tribal council, we see the torches are lit. Jeff lets Zach recite the fire and the flame thing. You know, the fire or the flame represents your life. And once it goes out, you go out too. You're out of the game or something to that effect. So Zach apparently is a super fan. And knows everything about the game. And that's interesting. When I finish up, you'll know why. Jeff at a normal tribal council, Jeff chats with them, asks questions. They evaluate the game, including the impact of not having rice. They talk about the shot in the dark. It's up in the air. The only one that has mentioned it back in the camp was Zach. No one else knows that at this time. And Zach shares that he's nervous for him and Tori. And I found it so interesting that he says, yes, I'm nervous for me and Tori. Like he just threw her out there. And then Tori, her whole body language changed. And she says she was trustworthy and she's loyal. And Zach says, oh no. And he accused Tori of trying to throw Zach under the bus or throw him under the bus. And that he doesn't trust her and doesn't want to work with her at all. So Zach was playing the game because although he was the target, he does what you're supposed to do, and that's try to drag somebody else and make them a target as well. And that's exactly what he did with Tori, or attempted to do. And then Tori tries to explain why her name was brought up because of her 10-minute walk when she was looking for food and the idol, which she won't admit to. But that's what she was doing. All right. We see when they start to vote, Zach went for the shot in the dark. And we also see Drea when she gets notified that she gets an extra vote, right? Because that twist, or when they came and collected one person from each tribe to go up that hill, based on the split decision, now that she risked her vote, now she gets an extra vote. That was part of that challenge, or part of that twist. All right. So Zach went for, where am I at? The shot in the dark. Drea gets notified that she gets an extra vote. And I wasn't sure at first. I'm not sure. Does she get that extra vote just in tonight's tribal council, or can she use that further along in the game? Because I think she only voted once tonight. All right. I'll have to learn that. If anyone knows, just let me know. Okay. Zach's shot in the dark was not safe. So all the votes against him would count. And sure enough, he was voted out. It was a unanimous vote, by the way. So no one was falling for his shenanigans. And they got him right out of there. I think that's probably because he did poorly in that puzzle. But both Swati and Zach were the puzzle, were supposed to solve that puzzle for their tribe in that challenge. So, but they blamed Zach. All right. So what do you think of the first episode? Did anyone stand out for you? For me, I think Roxroy is going to get on everyone's nerves even more at some point in the game. He is just too bossy. And that's not going to work well in his favor. Also, Marion, her emotional reaction to Jackson leaving the game, that was a bit much for me, but that stood out. Jonathan, I think he is on the Taku tribe. Jonathan, he is a physical threat, and it's working out for the Taku tribe, by the way. And the two challenges they have, we've seen him in action. So clearly he's he's a strong person for that team. Excuse me. Another thing that stood out is Jenny. She's very analytical. And I think both she and Omar are like the mental beasts in the game, or they have the potential to be the mental beasts in the game, you know. And Tori, I feel that she thinks she's smarter than everyone else. And I foresee that to be a problem somewhere down the line. Excuse me. All right. Oh, let's not forget that Hi, Drea, and Lindsay, they still have that advantage from the twist, right? During the first challenge when they were at that stump to win the basic supplies. So I'm looking forward to how that twist plays out. Remember, in order for it to turn into the idol, one of the three of them has to turn on the other two or get the other two out in order for them to get the idol. So we have to see how that plays out. Yeah, and that was the 2-hour premiere. Very long. Hopefully my reviews moving forward will be a lot shorter. This was 2 hours tonight. Normally I think it's in 1 hour. It's 1 hour long, so it won't be as long. And I'll continue to follow the season. And I hope you join me. All right. And that's all I have. So be sure to come back and give me a listen. I'd love for you to like, share, follow, and subscribe. You can also leave me a comment, leave me a message. If you're listening to the podcast, there's a link to leave me a message right on the landing page. So you have to check that out. Okay. My name is Danielle, and you're listening to my podcast, Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I appreciate your support. And that's all I have. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.